today's episode, what if we could use our enterprise software only through prompts? What if we had a framework to evaluate the quality of the output from LLMs and AI? And what if we gave total control to AI of our computer? Hello everybody, Jeremy here. Thank you for tuning in. And today in user experience / AI digest, I'm going to cover 3 short stories. The first one will be about a framework to evaluate the output from AI. This article that I found is focused on evaluating voice agents, but I think this has implications for AI overall. Then we'll cover what could happen and what could be the value of leaving your computer open for AI to use. And finally, what if we could use our enterprise software look more like a prompt? So let's start. So I haven't read the whole articles, of course, but I'm just using that as, let's say, inspirational elements and to discuss the implications on a user experience level. That is really helpful to me because sometimes I suffer from analysis paralysis, so sometimes it's even more helpful to me to only read some of it and discuss what would be the implications on a user experience level. Okay, so first and foremost, we have this new framework for evaluating voice agents. So it's called EVA. And this is an article that I found on Hugging Face. And so this is a framework to evaluate end-to-end conversations with voice agents. And so that evaluates multi-turn spoken conversations using realistic bot-to-bot architecture. And so what is interesting is that there are several scores here. We have accuracy. So we have, let's say, the physical aspects of your interaction, in this case accuracy, and we also have experience, and so how was it perceived by the end user. And so I find this really interesting in the fact that we are combining, finally, first and foremost, I didn't know that we didn't have any, let's say, framework for evaluating voice agents. I honestly thought we had. I worked on that for a year. So I reviewed all the literature that is linked to how can we make conversations with artificial agents more natural. And so, for instance, I discovered a whole bunch of things that we humans do that make our conversations natural and acceptable, such as back channels. So this is a thing that I discovered. So when you speak to someone, you are waiting for cues from this person that manifest that they're understanding you, that they're following you, that they agree or not with what you said, but at least that they provide feedback to you. And in absence of that, the conversation looks really, let's say, artificial or maybe eerie. And so, yeah, there is a need to, let's say, take some inspiration from this human-to-human interaction and applying it to human-to-artificial to some extent, because we can go to the uncanny valley. For those who are not familiar, it describes this sensation, this feeling we would have the more our interaction with an artificial agent, let's say, mimic the ones from humans, but at the same time, they do not have the same capabilities as humans. So once we understand that these are artificial, it creates an eerie sensation, which is described by the uncanny valley. Anyways, so I found this to be really interesting because I oftentimes find in our frameworks a really strong emphasis on measuring either the experience the experience that the user has with their AI, their agent or their product, or the other side, like measuring the physical aspect. I like to call it physical aspect. It's not necessarily physical. It's like the ingredients, the criteria, the attributes that you put in your product. That's what I'm referring to. And so what I find interesting is that this framework combines both. So, for instance, it has accuracy, and by accuracy, we understand task completion, faithfulness, measures whether the agent's responses were grounded in its instructions, policies, user inputs, and tool call results. Speech fidelity measures whether the speech system faithfully reproduced the intended text in spoken audio. And then we have experience, which ultimately is really interesting because okay, so it's experience, but I don't know, to be honest, how do they measure that. It looks like, okay, they measure conciseness, measures whether the agent's responses were appropriately brief and focused for spoken delivery. Conversational progression measures whether the agent moved the conversation forward effectively, and turn-taking measures whether the agent spoke at the right time, neither interrupting the user nor introducing excessive silence. Okay, so that's really interesting because I don't know exactly how do they measure those, the experienced ones. Is it really measured with end users, or is it measured with the designer? Okay, so at first glance, it looks like, and it almost doesn't matter for me to make my point here. And I'm going to have a full episode dedicated to that, to the importance of having 3 steps when we evaluate our experiences of whatever we conceive. It looks like what they call experience, the measure of experience, is not, maybe I'm wrong and I will correct if needed in a next episode, but this is not measured with end users, or maybe they use it themselves. Yeah, I'm not finding that information right now. Anyways, so it's interesting because whatever the result, I would say it sparks conversation. So when you create something, you need to evaluate it on several fronts. So I'd say if you want to elicit an experience, let's say increase in trust or increase in satisfaction, you should know what you should put in your product that will elicit these aspects. So you should be really clear in, okay, if I put this, let's say this turn taking or this voice, it will be perceived as more trustworthy, and so my user will trust it more. It's like this 3-step evaluation framework that I know is not new, but I'm really advocating for, let's say, focusing on that even more with AI, because we are developing products that we don't know the intended, like, let's say, the expected outcome it will have on the user experience. So it's a pretty much like reverse engineering a really good recipe. Let's say you really like a soda, and your users really like your soda, but you don't know why they like it. So if you want to reproduce that, or if you know they like it to some extent, but not to the extent you were expecting, you would like to know what is the delta, that what should you be working on. It's like anything in life. If you are producing some outcome and output at your company and you want to improve, you must know where you stand in relationship to the extremes, and then how is your outcome tied to your output, so that you can know what you should change in your output. So it's the same. It's like we need to define what to put as ingredients inside of the recipe. Then we need a way to evaluate the recipe internally before our consumer eats the recipe, and then we need to evaluate with them again and compare that. So that's why I found this framework interesting, but still, it really looks like, maybe I'm wrong, but it really looks like they still evaluate that with only the designers or the ones who conceive the model, and it would be great to separate it to some extent. So there are several implications to the framework that I'm proposing. And it's not new, by the way. We are doing heuristic analysis since the beginning of time. We do usability inspections internally with teams before releasing products since the beginning of time. I'm just saying we should emphasize that more. But I will have a dedicated episode on that. Okay, then it's just a reflection to spark conversation. What I saw yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, we can now let Claude use our computer in co-work. So it looks like you can authorize Claude to access some of your files and folders, so that even through the app, once you're away, you can chat with it and ask it to message you a presentation because you are not ready for your presentation. So I'm really torn between being amazed and at the same time being kind of doubtful. Amazed because of the technology, of course, and at the same time, it's a bit the same as what I said yesterday. I think right now there's kind of a conflation between what the technology can do and what we should authorize it to do. I don't know. I feel like there is a mix at this stage between, LLMs are here, so because they are here, it means we are opening the gates to a lot of other things, such as controlling my computer, such as recording people, like in yesterday's issue, if you listen to it, this episode. We should open the gates to whatever we could, just because. So I don't know. Maybe it's really helpful to some people, but I am struggling to understand why, because we have the technology, which is LLMs, why does that mean we open the gates to everything else? Like, to me, these are not things that go hand in hand necessarily. It can, but not necessarily. And I see a push towards the end of privacy. I don't know. Every time a little bit more. The end of privacy. So I give the LLM permission to record my voice. Whatever I do, I prompt it with my voice. I record my meetings, and I analyze the transcripts automatically with LLM, and it goes into a server and it analyzes everything, and it uses that to improve their model. Maybe not at all times, but I prefer to assume that it does. Always, that's my rule of thumb. Once you have doubts, always assume that your data is being used to improve whatever product they are releasing. And I'm not anti. I work in user experience, so I think this is necessary to some extent, but I think it's good to know where you're leaving your data. I think this is important. Like, users should know where they're leaving their data. And so it's the same with co-work. I'm not affiliated or whatever. I really like Claude. I love what they're doing. I love the product, and I love their commitment to improving. But I just don't understand why there is this direction of course you can be in control. You can use the folders that you give Claude access to. I don't know. I'm just leaving that open. It's not so much a commentary, maybe it is, but it's more of a reflection, like philosophically speaking almost, and maybe even more user experience speaking, like on the level of trust. Do we really want to leave open our computer? For instance, I'm just wondering, why is there not, maybe there are, I think there are, why is there not more push for private LLMs to which we can speak with a self-hosted server, with a self-hosted LLM on your server, which does exactly the same thing? And I see a trend over and over and over again. This was the case with Google, where we tend to value way more convenience than privacy. So it's like, even if I know that Google is analyzing my data left and right, I know that the product is superior, and I know that the product is superior just because of that. And so I'm willing to make the trade. And I think this is a pattern that is being repeated with LLMs, and way more. It will have way more impact because we talk to these LLMs and we give them access to files. And so ultimately, I think this is way more impactful in terms of how quickly they can learn. So that's why probably, sorry, I'm thinking out loud, and I'm really sharing my thoughts as they come, but that I'm thinking that's probably why there is so much push for this mix between using our LLMs and giving them access to everything. Because ultimately they will be superior to private ones, because private ones don't have as much data to be trained on. And so ultimately these commercial ones will be more convenient because they do the job better. So it's like it's not even comparing apples to apples, I feel. Like comparing a private LLM to a commercial one. Maybe there is an in-between, which is you're a pro and you can train that so much that even if it's private, it does the job perfectly. But I really would like to see more emergence of private LLMs that do this kind of task. Okay, and finally, we have a news sharing a startup who wants to make enterprise software more look like a prompt. So that's the story of Josh Sirota, who founded the startup Aragon back in August and has just raised $12 million at a $100 million post-money valuation to build an agentic AI operating system for enterprise customers. They say the simple thesis is software is dead. So this is an article from TechCrunch. Sirota says, buttons and dialog boxes and pull-down menus are a thing of the past, and future business will be done by prompt. Aragon is attempting to offer the whole suite of business software, Salesforce, Snowflakes, Tableaus, and Jiras through LLM interface. Sirota, who worked on go-to-market teams at Oracle and Salesforce, admits to suffering a bit of quarter-life crisis in the lead-up to moving to San Francisco and launching Aragon with a small team from a live work loft across the street from the Giants baseball park. So, okay. Well, here my thoughts, like, I'm not speaking even about the product, like Aragon. I have no idea about the product itself. I'm looking at it as I speak. So if we go on our website, it's described as a proprietary AI powering the world of bits. It's an OS. They say it's Enterprise AI OS. At the foundation of every company are bits, ones and zeros, created every second, stored across every system. These bits grow exponentially every second. Together they make up our entire business. No one has ever been able to see all of it, connect all of it, act on all of it until now. So that's the vision, apparently. Okay. So, my unbiased, this is of course ironical. My opinion as a user experience researcher, interested in the human, maybe a little bit more than the technology, but also in the technology. That's probably why I'm user experience researcher. I would posit that this is normal, what we are seeing, because it's like when you enter new territory, you need to map this territory. You need to map the extremes. You need to go to all of the edges of this territory so that you can readjust and settle where this is maybe less shaky or less dangerous or less uncertain. And so I feel we are entering this era of, we have some new toys, new capabilities, which is AI, and we need to experiment with all of it and see what sticks. So that's what I'm seeing with these kind of things. I'm not saying that this is wrong or right or whatever. I'm just describing what I'm seeing. So, in my opinion, when we interact with objects, there are so many senses that are solicited. We have vision, touch. We have and in senses here. So what is integrated in our perception, I will also include other things. So like memory, feelings, goals. Like in this model that I'm describing, even that is an input, I would say. And so then you need to make a decision and you need to act on it. And once you act, it's the same. You have 1,000 ways to do something. And these 1,000 ways, they are competing with each other, with also including your experience. So, for instance, if I'm an enterprise software user, I might have a goal. Let's say I might input the how can I say, the payroll data of my employees. Okay, so I might have to do that. And I have several ways to do it. And this is what we are seeing right now. I might do it with voice. I might do it typing. I might do it by clicking. I might do it by clicking on buttons. Ultimately, it will all depend on my experience also. Am I a new payroll specialist? Or am I an experienced one with 15 years of experience? So that also adds to the complexity. How regularly do I need to do it? And so on and so forth. To what extent do I trust technology? And I would say that it's not so clear to me that we should use only one modality. Like to make it short, my conclusion is it's not so clear. Do we really want to only interact with technology with prompting? That's my question that I want to leave here. Because if it's the case, how restricting would that be? Like, let me tell you, I'm developing a website recently, and I'm using only AI prompts. I was really torn between using AI prompts only, prompts to LLMs, and using a drag and drop builder. And I know to some extent how to come up with a website, but I would say it's really basic HTML and CSS, and I'm not a web designer. So to get the job done, I was hesitating between drag and drop builder and the use of LLMs, knowing that right now on the market, I looked at it, and it looks like if you want to build your website with an LLM and then edit it by drag and drop, which would be the most efficient to me, we don't have such product. At least I couldn't find any. If you happen to know of any, please let me know. I think on Spotify you can comment on the show. So let me know, because I couldn't find any, and it's really, really frustrating. It looks like companies again and again and again, like I think it's not companies, it's maybe the mindset. We tend to always put products first before needs. And so that's what I'm seeing probably with this kind of let's say take, that we could have the enterprise software looking more like a prompt. So it's really a mindset saying that you can do everything by just prompting. Well, if I take the example of website design, I don't know. If I need to change one thing, I need to prompt it and wait for its answer, whereas it would be way easier to do it by hand and drag and dropping. So I don't know. I'm not sure that this would work, to be honest. I might be wrong. Let's see. But at least it would be a learning experiment for this company, even if it doesn't work. But I'm just saying that having only one modality to interact with technology kind of feels restrictive, to be honest. And sometimes, for having spoken with a lot of users throughout the 10-ish years of experience that I have in user experience, I can tell you, people want to do things a certain way. And if you take that away from them, they are not happy. And sometimes we do want to have control over things. So if you don't leave your users a exit door or a retry, and that is part of Nielsen heuristics, well, they're not happy, and understandably so, because you're placing barriers between them and the job they have to accomplish. And so restricting things to one modality could be one of those barriers. I don't know, I'm just saying. So that's it for today's episode, these 3 news. I hope you liked it, and I hope you learned at least one thing, or at least that it sparked conversations. I'm super happy to have people disagree with me. Let me know in the comments. I don't have the full knowledge of what's behind these articles and these news. There may be way more, let's say, smart people around that could let's say, complement what I'm saying. So if it's the case, please comment, and I would learn from that. So until then, take care. See you tomorrow. Cheers. Yo.